get up, I get up, can't deny it.
Okay, so good everyone. Here's Zdeněk. I'm founder and CEO of Startup Disrupt. It's amazing that you were able to join us for the online conference around future transportation. And it wouldn't be possible for us to organize such an amazing event if we wouldn't have our partners like Google, Aspen Institute, and especially the main partner. And so right now, I would like to give a word to the CEO of Operator ICT, Michal Fischer, who will give us his welcome speech for today's session. Thank you. So Michal, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you very much for having me on today's discussion. I hope we're gonna be able to hear each other. There were some problems at the beginning. As again, I'm the CEO of the Operator ICT, which is city-owned company. The city of Prague owns this company, and we provide all kinds of IT and communication services for the city of Prague. The practical aspects of today's debates, we've been having about the future mobility for several years, but current situation concerning the COVID crisis actually give us the time to adopt in a matter of days. So this brings a huge challenge. We are actually for the city of Prague running the check-in system for the mass transportation. And because we actually see how much we sell the tickets for the mass transportation, there is one thing that actually brings a huge challenge for us and a huge change that since the COVID crisis began, we actually see about 70 to 80% decrease in the revenues for the tickets for the mass transportation for the city of Prague as well as for the central Bohemian region. That is because the users of the mass transportation, they actually changed their behavior since the crisis started. And we can clearly see that a huge group of this mass transportation users feel not safe in the public transportation. And then that brings me to two conclusions or two questions for today's discussion and for our participants in the discussion. First of all, how would you manage the public transportation to become to feel more safe or more attractive even in the time of crisis such as this one? And then the second question would be, could the alternative mobility providers could actually provide services that actually mass transportation cannot provide in the such time as is this one, and maybe also in the future. So this would be my two questions, my two things that I would like to discuss or our participants to discuss. I hope the discussion is going to be interesting, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you very much for having me here.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Ivan. Thank you, Michal. And just a quick question to all of you guys. If you have any questions which we'd like to ask, please go to Slido, and if you'll use the code SDP, like Startup Disrupt Prague, you can ask the questions. We already have a bunch of them, but if you would like to go there, maybe you can thumbs up some which you are your favorite, and we'll try to answer them. So thank you very much and enjoy today's session. I'll right now pass the word to Ivan Hodač, the president of the Aspen Institute Central Europe, who will be the moderator for today's discussion. Thank you. And Ivan, it's yours right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Thank you very much, Michal. It's a pleasure to be here. And let me introduce you, the participants to our discussion. First, we have with us Barbora Mičková, who is a policy officer at ALLRAIL. ALLRAIL, for the ones who doesn't know, is an alliance of rail new entrances, basically companies like Leo Express, RegioJet. We have with us Jan Burdinski, an executive director from Hyundai Motor Europe. Jan is joining us in Berlin. Then we have with us also Zdeněk Petzl, executive director of AutoSAP. AutoSAP is the association that represents the Czech automotive industry. Ondřej Krátký, co-founder and CEO of Liftago. And last but not least, Švaříček, who is CEO of HoppyGo. We have about 50 minutes, so let's use the 50 minutes in a productive way. Before I go to your questions, Michal, that you have put on the table, let me ask our participants to give us a very short 1 to maximum 2 minutes overview. How does the present situation affect your business? Not from the point of view of how many cars you produce or do not produce, but from the point of view of mobility. What does it really mean for you? How did it change what you are doing today, and how did it affect your business? I will start with you, Barbora.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Patrick, for inviting me for Otherwise Car Only panel. And it really gives me hope, as I said before, because I see the transportation as a whole multimodal thing. And this is why I think it's important to have rail as a part of the transportation discussion, as it should be, because it should lead to multimodal transportation, multimodal Europe, which sounds as really empty buzzword line, but I really hope so. For rail, it's really difficult time, and we see it from the perspective of newcomers. And I think the perspective of newcomers, it's the one where passengers are. And so, if I would put it really shortly, if newcomers won't make it, and it might happen because there is no aid for rail, then there might be no future, no real future for rail, which would be really bad for the whole multimodal concept, because I really see that modes are not competing with each other, but rather complementing with each other. And I mentioned it before the discussion. There was a proposal on 4th of March. Now it seems really, it sounds as a joke, that 2021 should be year of rail. And then COVID came, and all member states are giving massive bailouts to airline companies, and no one talks about passenger rail anymore. So it's really challenging time, and I always hope that crisis can bring new challenges, and this time it can bring digitalization. But the ultimate goal now is to survive.
Okay, thank you very much. It's interesting to hear from you that you are supporting multimodality rather than modal shift, which we have heard before, and some of the people around the table didn't like it. Jan, what about Hyundai?
Yes, thank you, Ivan, and thank you, Patrick, for inviting me as a non-Czech into this Czech expert panel. I'm very happy, and be assured that my name Jan Karel actually is very Czech, but I was still born in the wrong country. What looking at the entire situation of the COVID-19 crisis from 50,000 feet up, what we see is not a European Union, and certainly it's not a United States of Europe, but more a Europe of nation states. And if we look at the challenges that we have in moving goods and people around Europe, and from my understanding on how the concept of the European Union, there's these 4 freedoms, and 2 of the freedoms is freedom of movement of people and freedom of movement for goods. And if we have very complex and supply chains that go and cross borders many times. If that is not happening, I'm not going to lament about the amount of cars we have not bought or sold or manufactured, but this is a fundamental thing that I as a European citizen I can feel in this situation, that there is a shift towards restricting freedoms for individuals, also restricting freedoms for companies, and that is a path that I personally see with a lot of skepticism, and I would rather see us in our path back to a new normal, which is not going to be the old normal. Everything's going to be changed after we lift all the isolation and the lockdown. But in this new normal, we also have to ask ourselves how we want to go about this, and if these freedoms that we have promised one another are still actually active. And I would hope that we come back to this in defending them much more again.
Well, I think that we all hope, and it's interesting that what you have said about the EU, the role of the EU, and the basically the non-existence of the EU. We are going to return back to it later on. Ondřej, what about your business? How is it impacted? Badly, positively? What is happening to you?
Hi, thanks for having me here. I think the ride-hailing industry, or somebody calls that still sharing economy. I think it will get a completely new set of cards. I mean, maybe it will be a completely new game to play, not just another set of cards. Because all of the different verticals of sharing economy, of digital economy, had companies used to super growth and fueled for super growth and financed for super growth, which is now not going to be the case. So I think those companies who had a couple of legs to stand on will survive and maybe will even thrive. The companies who were just betting on one card may not be strong enough to go past the crisis. I think the biggest players in the game will be the ones affecting the market significantly. It is a big question mark for me if the likes as Uber what will they do, because they have a couple of verticals to do, but they have really a fragile profit base to stand on. So that can change the market significantly. The local players might be impacted really much because the tourism has gone away, and most of the local players are not used to that. They're not used to having a cash base to stand on. As far as Liftago goes, we've designed a route to go to, which involved the whole urban logistics, not just taxi. For the past 2 years, we've been using taxi as a source of delivery, couriers of everything, which is now going to be probably the strongest leg to stand on. To be completely honest with you guys, Liftago taxi business is now at 10%, not 10% lower, is at 10%. So it is a blow, but our logistics business is growing 100% each week. So it is not at the point where we would compensate for the losses at all, but the whole company changed in 4 days, and we are like at a situation where this situation can really power up a whole new vertical, which we thought we would be building for 5 years, and now it seems that it will be maybe less than a year. So we've got a long way on taxi. That might compensate a bit, but not to previous levels. But we've seen some huge growth in logistics business.
When the crisis will be over one day, hopefully, is it going to go back, or do you see the continuation of the new type of business you have today? The logistics and 10% of the taxis, is it going to change back, or do you expect that you are going to be building on the experience of what you have today?
Well, we have. I do not source from just my experience because it's not huge, but we have a nice set of investors, which is six stockholders, and a couple of them are in logistics. One of them is actually has the whole data set for the whole Europe of how the transportation business is now going in numbers. So that being said, I do not expect that the situation in taxi or in transportation will get back to previous numbers anytime soon. I'm not basing my predictions on that. I cannot count on that. Maybe the market will cleanse some of the companies that didn't have the right to exist. Maybe that will help and reshuffle the cards, but I'm not basing my expectations on that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Zdeněk. You represent the Czech automotive industry, both the suppliers and the OEMs. How does the crisis, let's forget the number of cars that are being produced, the fact that Skoda has shut down the production, etc. How does the present situation impact your business, and how does it impact the need for the car companies to invest enormously in R&D, because the expectations that we all have is that very soon we are going to have autonomous cars, and suddenly there might not be money for the investment to this thing. How do you see that?
Yeah, thank you, Ivan. I think it's actually a right question. What we see right now that there's a stoppage of production across Europe and frankly across almost all over the world. Just China is coming back online. That means there are huge losses, and these will have to be, all the budgets that the automotive industry had for R&D and advanced research. They will have to be rethinked. I mean, what we see right now that those budgets are probably going down by at least 10 to 20%, which is obviously a very bad news given the climate, given what we've been through. I mean, the automotive industry has been through quite heavy changes recently, and it will still go through them, be it this electromobility, clean mobility thing, or autonomous driving, or this connected vehicle that really is focused around the customer. Obviously, we will need to respond, and we need to respond to the current situation. That means we'll need to become contactless, not only communicative, but also contactless, just like the payments and deliveries are being made contactless these days. We actually, our companies have adopted strategies how to take care of the cars. I mean, I mean from perspective of hygienic cleaners from viruses. For example, this ozone treatment, so that the cars can be, firstly, the new cars can be delivered to the customers, and then obviously the cars that are shared can be shared safely, because that's the second thing, protected, that customers obviously will want these days. And those changes will basically trickle down to the shift of retail into the online, which is difficult from administrative point of view, and also shift to a combination of services. This not only shared mobility, but really interconnected, that you will not only buy a car or buy a ticket from Prague to Brno, but you will also be offered other services like local ones with rides, etc., all in one solution.
Yeah, thank you very much. Does it mean that in the future, the OEMs, the car companies, as we call them, are they going to be more selling mobility or selling cars?
Well, absolutely, it's about mobility. We actually do not know what the car of the future will look like. The idea, although it may be quite a far future from now, would be an autonomous pod, not a car as we know it these days. So mobility solutions is obviously the huge thing that everybody's looking into. although we need to bear in mind that this is still, even in the year 2020, quite a difficult topic for our industry, which has been always heavily focused on production side. This customer side, connected side, it's still sort of a mystery. And yes, I'm shooting sort of myself into a leg right now by saying that, but this is something we need to really tackle to really do the shift into this shared connected mobility, as you mentioned.
Well, I will remember that. Thank you very much. Robin, what about your business? How is it impacted today with the present situation? Are people still renting the cars? How does it go for HoppyGo?
For us at HoppyGo, in contrast with what Barbora and Ondřej said, actually the situation is pretty stable. We have seen some changes in a way how people use our business towards longer trips, not that many of the daily trips, but towards weekly or even monthly trips. So the situation overall is quite stable. We are actually one of the example of a mobility solution that is being developed at Škoda Auto DigiLab. So we are one of that mobility solution that the OEM producer is trying to come up with a mobility solution. And on top of that, actually during the last couple of weeks, we tried to come up with also new ideas of how to use HoppyGo as a platform, because we are a technological platform that can be used for multiple purposes. So we not only focus on the daily agenda of renting cars, but also came up with an idea how to help the frontliners, meaning the charities and city municipal organizations who were delivering foods and medicaments. So we actually used our technological backend and background for helping these kind of organizations, which again, maybe in the future, it will be some of the business opportunity and model we will use. I think for now, what it shows that first, our business model seems to be pretty stable even in these tough conditions. And second, it shows that the flexibility of the platform is quite huge, and it gives us an opportunities in the future in general.
Thanks a lot. But Robin, you have been obviously renting cars also to people who are crossing borders with the cars. How are you impacted by the fact that today and maybe for a long time to come, it will be extremely difficult to cross the borders inside the European Union, inside Europe? How does that impact and how it will impact your business?
Absolutely, it had an impact. We had several cases where our car was stuck in the other countries, and we had to find a solution how to bring the car back. But we were successful in that. In general, yes, we will need to focus on more Czech trips rather than abroad trips. But I think it goes aligned with what Czech Tourism and other organizations are planning, meaning Explore Czech. And so we will just rather focus on these kind of activities. We will still allow people to take the car abroad if they want to, but it needs to be followed closely with the legal regulations and restrictions that will be imposed by a government. So we actually think that the lost abroad trips will be compensated with the increase in the local trips within Czech Republic.
Okay, but do we all agree that one of the biggest problems that we are facing today, as far as the mobility and transportation is concerned, is that the borders are closed, that we don't have any more European Union, as Jan has mentioned at the beginning. So one of the things that we really would expect is that the borders will open as soon as possible. Is there anybody who would disagree with that?
I think
yes. Ondřej?
Barbora, woman first.
Barbora first, okay. Barbora?
For us, the situation is different. When you mentioned ALLRAIL, you mentioned Leo Express and RegioJet, and they are affected tremendously by the lockdown and closure of borders. So for them, it's true. For our other members, for example, we have a member in Italy, and they were only in Italy, but they managed what you mentioned earlier, the modal shift. So because of them, on high speeds, they managed to attract people from aviation. So don't worry about cars, from aviation to high speed. And now they can't operate. So they are affected if the borders are not closed. The same for Sweden, the same for Germany.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ondřej.
Well, I just think that I'm not saying that I disagree. I'm just saying that there are more underlying trends that we don't know yet, and that we cannot estimate the severity of. Maybe car sharing and rail are impacted or aren't impacted by the current reaction of the market. But I think the more the economy changes as unemployment grows and buying patterns will shift, it's very hard to estimate what it will do. So I would be just really not sure to have a crystal ball to say what will happen. I would just really closely monitor those underlying changes in workforce, in economy as a whole, and in other industries than just our verticals.
Okay, thanks a lot. Let's go now to one of the questions that Michal has been putting on the table regarding the mass transportation. And you have been asking how do we make the mass transportation safer? People are afraid to travel together. People are afraid to go to use the mass transportation because of the present situation, and it's probably not going to go away. So, what would be your take? I will ask each of you in a very short statement. How do you think the public transportation or the mass transportation can be made safer? We know that the transportation is a multimodal transportation. So by the fact that the mass transportation is affected negatively, everybody at the end of the day is affected negatively. So Jan, why don't we start with you?
Happily do so. If we look into ways to make the mobility in a car safer, we simply have to look at solutions that are already there. If you are in a cab in New York or a cab in London, do you have any access to the driver? Of course not. There's a big glass separating you from the driver. Why is that there? It's to keep the driver safe from you, like, I don't know, strangling him, robbing him, or doing anything. And now it's keeping the driver safe from whatever comes out of your mouth, and it's keeping you safe from whatever comes out of the mouth of the driver. Could I see that this is a standard practice in a future Uber or Lyft or Grab or Ola or Liftago car? Absolutely. Would I, as an individual, would I appreciate this? I think I would, because my need to be close, physically close to the driver is nil. I want the driver to get me from A to B. I want him to be pleasant, to be attentive, and that's it. For the rest of the transportation, for buses, for trams, for metros, underground, I believe there has to be a major investment to have many more of these servicing the people, so that actually within the trains or within the buses there is the chance to keep this distance of 1.5 meters. And one of the things I believe is not going to go away, and we will have to get used to that. In Asia, it's very normal that A, you get your temperature checked when you arrive at the airport, and B, you wear a mask. And there are countries.
Very shortly, please.
There are countries in this, I will be done in a moment. And because everyone is wearing a mask, and we will have to get used to that. If we want or not, when we are in public places themselves and others.
Yeah, but we are not. I don't believe that we are going to keep distance from each other 1.5 to 2 meters endlessly. This will go away one of these days.
But then we have to wear masks.
And the Asians, when you look at Japan, the way they mess themselves into the trains and things like that, I wonder if that is not coming back in one way or another at the given moment. Zdeněk, shortly, what is your way? How would you make the mass transportation safer?
Well, I think Jan has already covered the part of it. There are solutions that are present. I think Robert Švaříček would be able to talk a bit more about the solutions that had to be implemented in order to make HoppyGo work, so that people are safe, that the cars they are renting out are clean. The same solutions had to be implemented for the cars that were sold, and basically the same solutions will have to be implemented for mass transportation as well. I mean, the ones that will ensure that it's clean, that you can touch the poles, that you have to grab during the ride, and that there is some regular cleaning. I think this is something that will ensure that the people will be able to return to life as normal as soon as possible.
Thanks a lot, Barbora. This impacts you directly. What is your advice?
I don't know if we have advices, but what our members started to do, so they have really strict rules for their teams. So basically, the train drivers, they don't meet anyone from like anyone else from the company. They have very strict rules for other stuff. So so this is one part, and the other part for passengers. So they have hand sanitizers, face masks for personnel, but also for passengers. They do the ionization and cleaning, etc. They also started to do already, for example, in Sweden, MTR, when you buy a ticket, you also get the ticket from the seat next to you. So you already have social distancing within the ticket. So this is what our members are doing currently. The other part currently solved itself, that people are not traveling so much. So they are operating ghost rides anyway, because there's no one in the train. And how it will evolve, this is what we are just assuming, what we are hoping for, if there will be some regulation in place. So when the state will say, well, you have to, if you travel, you have to leave 1, 2, 3, 4 other seats free, then also the state will compensate it, because the companies, they can carry the losses themselves.
Yes, thank you very much, Robin. What has been said by Jan, Zdeněk, and Barbora basically says that indirectly that we will be living with the present situation for quite a while, and we will have to adjust our way of moving around, to put it bluntly. Do you think that there will be an alternative modes of transportation, alternative mobility developed because of this situation, or how do you see it?
Well, in general, of course, there are alternatives, but from a customer point of view, coming back to the topic of public transportation, it's not just about like having it safer. For me, the problem still stays the same. It's also to make it cooler. And I think what needs to be done is that my problem is not to transfer from station to station. My problem is to travel from really door to door. And I think what needs to happen to make it not just safer, but also cooler and more customer oriented is to really come up with a solution that solves your door-to-door problem. And I think there's a couple of projects that really can solve this problem, and by like smart combining different projects together, you can really solve a problem of door-to-door transportation. And I think that if we are coming back to the topic of public transportation, this is what I think they really shall focus as well, not just the safe side of the public transportation, but also how to make the product more customer oriented and really solve the problem of the customers. So yes, they are alternatives. I would love to propose like HoppyGo as an alternative to public transportation, because yes, it's safer, but obviously there's limited capacity, and so we need public transportation as a system. Obviously, that's a backbone of the network and of the country. So we need public transportation to be working. And I just think that it needs to be put together much cleverer with these combining services together as a door-to-door service.
Yes, thank you very much, Ondřej. What we hear now is that In fact, door-to-door transportation is a multimodal transportation. I don't have to travel door-to-door in a car. I don't have to travel by train door-to-door. I cannot. In fact, it's extremely difficult. But we are really looking at multimodal transportation. Do you believe that it's the future of the transportation? We have been discussing this when we were discussing transportation of goods in the past. Now we are discussing it regarding transportation of people. Is this going to be the future, the multimodal transportation?
Well, first, I think it's just an opportunity to proceed different directions, because consumers will be ready to look out for new models, and multimodal will be one of them. I'm not, we've been doing Liftago for some years, and I don't believe that is just one direction. I don't believe it's just what I say because I'm doing ride hailing. I don't believe it's just what the car sharing is about. We'll push the different direction. Certainly, multimodal will be one of the directions, and a lot of changes will now lead to more like smooth connections in between the modes. That's for sure. I think another direction is still the comfort of the users. So not having to check my route, whether the perfect route will be to change next 5 minutes and then change it back to a different mode. I still think that's some like the least of customers' problem will still be another direction. There will be people who will simply prefer the least hassle with the mode they select. But I still believe that the major direction will be the price. I don't want to fool myself saying that I will save people that they will travel door to door or door to train or door to car share by taking my cab, but I still think the majority will save public transportation because it's simply the cheapest, and it will be still. I think the current reaction of public is just a psychology. They're just scared because they don't know what's going to happen if they enter a train or if they enter a bus. But this will quickly go away because they will simply have to choose the way to travel to their jobs. And that cannot be the most expensive option.
Now I have lost the... do you hear me?
Yeah.
But I don't see you.
Ivan, can I just briefly talk about one of the future models that we are currently working on in terms of to organize urban transport. We have this agreement with Uber that at some point in 5-6 years time we will be operating decentralized hubs. From these decentralized hubs where people get to in their robo taxis, we will be flying people in with Uber Elevate into their destination choice, and
but I can hear you,
or they can. I'm sorry for that.
Can you hear Jan?
I hear you well.
No, but
I can't hear you.
Jan got crooked for a bit in terms of audio. So maybe
sorry.
If you can shortly repeat what you have been saying.
So the concept,
short.
you have a decentralized hub where you go with your robo taxi. From that, you take a Uber Elevate, which is a flying car, to the city centers, avoid congestion, where you get in onto your e-scooter or whatever other means of transport you choose. So this is multimodal transport that you use you commute to work every day, and it's going to be easy, it's going to be very convenient, and it's going to be quick, and you avoid being exposed to too many people at the same time.
Barbara?
Yeah, may I have just one thing on multimodality? I just don't think it's a new thing. I mean, like my grandmother, when she was young, she was already commuting multimodally when she took her bike, went to the train station, and then went by train. So it's not really a new thing, and we are already living multimodally. What is my hope for the crisis? That the multimodality might go smoother, more digital, and more passenger friendly. And this is why it's currently the biggest trouble multimodality, that all modes are a little bit closed. So we are closed in the rail system where, and this is really happening now in Germany. They are talking, and I hope that after COVID they won't be, about having a tax. So back before the internet, and that the train should leave every 20 minutes or every 40 minutes, etc. But I don't think that people currently think that way. They don't like to remember, maybe except me because I'm a rail person, when the train is leaving. But they want to see what if they should take a Liftago or bike or public transportation, and then what time is the train, and then what the bike, train, car, whatever is leaving from the train station. So this is my hope for the crisis, that it can also bring innovation, and that the multimodality will be really, really digital and really happening, and it won't be happening as my grandmother experienced it.
That's a very interesting statement, because basically what you are saying is that the crisis are going to help us to get to multimodality.
That's my hope. That's my hope.
Do the others hope the same? Robin, is it your view also?
I absolutely share that view, because the opportunity lies in the fact that people now got to use more technologies, like these new platforms, applications, and that is the opportunity. We just need to use it, and we cannot lose these people from using these technologies and platforms and applications they are now using. So this is the opportunity I see there. And as mentioned, I see an opportunity in smart partnership and combining these clever transportation platforms and applications together to create a really business that makes a difference for people. And that is the opportunity I see, because people actually right now, they are much more used to use mobile phone for like looking for searching connections and then these kind of stuff, and we should use it in our benefit.
Is it correct to say that if I hear you correctly, that what is going to happen is that we will go away more and more from private ownership of cars. Cars will not be a status symbol as it was before, and we are going to move towards a multimodality, as it has been said. Does it also mean that we will be moving towards more and more smart cities? Because the smart cities concept has been mentioned several times. And are we moving more to that situation, Ondřej?
The sound got a little bit tricky for me. Could you repeat the last sentence?
No, I was asking you if you believe that in the present crisis, it would help us in a certain way, in inverted commas, to move closer to what everybody's talking about, smart cities.
Well, yeah, but I think it will help to cleanse the really smart solution to only the impactful ones. I think we've had a period of projects and initiatives which looked innovative, which looked really cool, but they were not impactful. I think in terms of in the times of crisis and scarcity, that will really help to cleanse the projects to be really only the smartest ones, the most impactful ones.
Yeah, thank you very much. There is, Zdeněk, there is a question about the Green Deal, about clean mobility. How I cannot go away from it. We simply have to put it on the table. It was also here. Somebody asked via the Slido. How do you look at it? Is the present crisis going to push away let's forget the Green Deal, but clean transportation? How do you see it? Where do you see the problem?
Well, I think to go away from the trend of clean mobility would mean to sign off a huge investment that has already been done, and not only part of the automotive business, but also other sectors, namely the utility, the energy sector. So in that sense, I don't see that we would actually shift the trend that we have started a couple of years ago. It would not make simply sense to do that. Maybe coming back to the questions you posed earlier, the ones regarding the smart city, the combination of those mobility solutions. In my mind, there's still a sort of a clash between the public and private sector in this area. At least in Europe, I think it is. That we perceive the old mobility solutions like trams, buses, and metro to be in clash with the new solutions that are represented by Liftago, Lime, Uber, whatever you name it. So maybe we should perhaps look to the east, to China, how this is tackled, because in my mind, there is a trend towards re-engaging those partnerships between private and public, also in mobility, in smart city applications, and that perhaps could be the way forward to have solutions that are reasonable for customers and also economically in a same way as Ondřej mentioned, that the market now will be sort of cleansed of those uneconomical solutions. Or this may be also a way to help it.
Okay, thank you very much. Ondřej, any comments to this one?
Well, I totally agree. I just think that it's very hard. It needs to be combined, actually, but it needs to be an equal partnership. What I see in the internationally to the east or to the west is that sometimes the partnerships tend to be really commercial ones, and that in the end, ride-hailing tends to prey on public transit, which should not be the case. Because public transportation is not profitable from the very definition of it, and sometimes the companies who are looking for those partnerships are not profitable too, but they should be. And what I see in some countries is that if the taxis are too cheap, I mean not sustainably cheap, then they can really take the share of public transportation, but not lead us into the right direction, because this is not sustainable business. This is not sustainable partnership. So I think I totally support those cases, but I just think that they should be made on calculations which are sustainable.
Yes, thank you very much. We have about 5 to 10 more minutes maximum. Let's go to the EU. In short, what would you expect from the European Union to do to help your businesses and to make sure that the future mobility, in fact, is multimodal and serves the interest of the citizens and also your businesses? What is let's look away from the member states. Let's look at the EU. What would you expect from the European Union to do today in the present crisis? Barbara.
What we are asking European Union, European Commission to do is to urge member states to act, because just like geopolitical railway overview, we've been experiencing like really difficult times even before COVID. So usually you have one infrastructure manager in a state, one state-owned railway operator, and then sometimes you have also one subsidiary. So typically you have Deutsche Bahn and Arriva is operating everywhere in Europe but in Germany. So and then you have a couple more operators, open access operators, not getting any subsidy in Europe, and you have really a few of them, and they had really difficult time before COVID. So, and we were talking about Flixcom before and Green Deal. So after really years of decline of rail, with these new operators, there was a really massive modal shift to rail and a massive increase in passenger numbers. And until March. And in March now, I think the COVID crisis really showed true colors. So member states are giving now massive bailouts to aviation company. companies, and they are not talking about any project in any member state. Also, that there is not any state aid scheme or financial aid scheme to passenger rail. My personal doubt is that because we are in the era of opening of the market. Currently, we are in transition period from 2019 until 2023, and because member states are owning the state-owned companies, this can easily solve the whole opening of the market. Because if they won't help the sector, their companies will survive it, but you will have no one to open the sector to. So
Thanks
this is what we are asking European Union to do, is really to urge member state to bear in mind Green Deal as well, and the objectives of Green Deal, and to keep rail competitive. Because if the competitiveness of rail within the rail won't survive, also multimodality will survive, but probably without rail.
Thanks a lot, Robin. Let's concentrate more on the EU action, the steps they should take in terms of the crisis.
Well, honestly, I'm very far from being able to tell what EU should do in terms of like help general the automotive/mobility business. But business-wise, yes, it would help us to have the borders open again. But safety always comes first, right? So it needs to be done in a right time. So honestly, I'm not able to tell what EU should do to help like public transportation or even like car manufacturers. For us, as mentioned, for us as a HoppyGo, we are still a small business which has not that impacted by the EU subsidies and then other programs that they are trying to impose to help these companies. So I cannot really tell what they should do to help us, honestly.
Thanks a lot. Ondřej, one sentence.
Well, I think the administration or the EU could motivate investments, not just compensation or loss. That's my one-liner.
Jan, one sentence.
The EU should help refinance and insert liquidity into the suppliers and the dealers, because they are hardest hit. The OEMs are, from a cash flow position, are very secure and can get through this storm without any public help. And one of the best principles of the European Union is subsidiarity. It's the member states who have to come up with the stimulus programs, like a green scrappage, like reducing VAT for zero emission vehicles, like reducing benefit in kind taxes to zero if you buy an environmentally friendly car. This is all something that has to be done in the capitals of the member states.
Thanks a lot. Zdeněk, really one sentence, please.
Not sure I can do it one, but yes, well, we need European Union for at least the internal market, that's for sure. But then again, I think we need to help ourselves as well, because just before the crisis broke out, we had a project ready with our Ministry of Economy. It was called Mobility Innovation Hub. A project that should, help guide the public money into the relevant business-oriented projects that would help with the mobility development in the Czech Republic. So my only hope is that we can still run this project, even though the funding will obviously be scarce after the crisis outbreak.
Yes, thank you very much. Last question to all of you. When we have been going through all these issues, what was very interesting was that not everything is negative because of the crisis. You have mentioned the changes that the crisis can bring, positive changes. Can you please give me one or two examples? We have really only 2 or 3 minutes left. What are the positive aspects? What can be the positive aspect that will come, that you hope it will come from the present situation? And we go the other way around and we ask for Jan.
I'm a dreamer. I hope the European Union will be a European Union again. and will work for the freedom and for the liberty of the people, so that we all live in a prosperous and safe and healthy environment.
Thank you very much. But let's concentrate on mobility and transportation, on the aspects that we have been discussing. Zdeněk.
When it comes to the workforce, for example, there obviously will be a shift in workforce after the crisis. That meaning some companies will have to lay off, some will be going well, they will need people, and we still might not have enough people from abroad. The question obviously would be, how do we shift those people across our country, because the mobility is an issue and people are not willing to relocate. So somebody who will be able to offer solutions for those people that will need to find another work, he'll maybe actually be a king of the situation.
Thank you very much, Ondřej.
Well, I think this situation will help accelerate some of the trends that were going to help anyway, and they're just going to happen faster.
Okay, Robin.
I already mentioned that. I think the crisis helped people to educate them for new technologies, and I only can hope that it will stay even after the crisis is over. So that is the key takeover from my side.
And Barbara, sorry I left you at the end, but now you have the last word here.
Oh, rail is a backbone, so it's perfect.
Short one.
Well, my hope, and I think it can really help with changing rail system from system-oriented to passenger-oriented, and because rail didn't really needed passengers in the past years before the newcomers. So this is what it can bring also with ticketing, with purchase. It's now like extremely difficult. So it can foster digitalization within the sector and purchase of the tickets, funding the tickets, and also cooperation with other modes. So it's easier for people to use it.
Thank you very much. I think I will slowly give it to you, Patrick and Michal, for final words. But if I should pick up some of the buzzwords that have been mentioned during this debate, which I think was very interesting, was the multimodality. I think we all agreed that multimodality is the future. The technology changes, and that we are going to move probably in a slightly different way. We are not going to things are not going to be as before, but we are just through the crisis. It looks like that the changes that were coming, smart cities, the technology aspects, new companies, that will probably be happen faster because of the changes, because of the crisis. The crisis will probably push these changes faster forward. So thank you very much. And Patrick, now it's you for the last words.
Okay, so thank you very much, Ivan, for this amazing moderation, and all of you guys that you made it for this great panel with many, I think, meaningful insights. As well, I am on the side of the, let's say, opinions and people who think that this let's say, the situation will accelerate more faster. All of those innovations and new approaches. How to actually execute some things. And what I think I would like to as well point out that tomorrow we are before our new launch of the project as a Startup Disrupt and Innovation Disrupt House. So please stay tuned. And we are preparing something really amazing for the next couple of weeks. Like every week we are having some similar kind of panel discussion. So stay tuned, stay safe, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
I get up, can't deny it.